Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss of Internet Shitlords. I don't know if the video just caught that, but Meatball was standing right in front of my phone when I was turning it on. She wouldn't move, so I just decided to turn it on. Then as soon as I turned it on, she started leaping up for the top of the display there. There's Meatball. All right. So today I'm going to talk some more about stuff that's coming down from 1D&D. But first I wanted to say, check out my own products. If you want to support me, if you want to support people that are doing games for the sake of gamers, products that are not about trying to indoctrinate you or that are not just like collectibles for people that want a lifestyle brand or something like that, but you want an actual game, right? Actual games in general, then be sure to check out all of my line of products. So you got the RPG Pundit Presents series. That's 107 different short supplements, which range from 99 cents to like $4.99. And they're all available on PDF. Links are all in the description below. You've got the Invisible College here, which is a modern day, it's an OSR game, so it's compatible with D&D. Modern day conspiracy occult role playing. Sword and Caravan, which is a campaign setting for Lion and Dragon for medieval adventures on the Silk Road, which includes the Third Crusade and the Silk Road area in the period just before the Mongol invasion, or during, if you want to play that. Old School Companion 2, 26 adventures. None of them containing eating contests in night markets, not one. All of them based on medieval myth and legend. So be sure to check out these products, and I'm sure that if you are a gamer and you pick them up, you're going to find useful things inside of them. If you're not a gamer and you still want to support me, well, give me some cash on Patreon. I guess that's always nice too. So. In a previous video, I was talking about 1D&D and how they've gone on to essentially, the plan is basically that they're getting rid of the significance of non-human races, right? And so what I mean is they're not getting rid of non-human races. Obviously, those are still going to exist. But they've decided now, for example, that racial modifiers don't apply anymore, right? Because people thought that black people are orcs, or that is to say, leftists thought that black people are orcs, and stuff like that. Then apparently black people are also drow, and I don't know, Latinos are gnolls or something. I'm not sure what Latinos are, but this racial ridiculousness from the left has actually made D&D a poorer game, and this has been done, as far as I can see, only because the people involved are either true believers or they're trying to surrender to the sect, right? To the racial intersectionalist sect. But guess what? It's not enough. That's the answer. Okay. So in spite of the new playtest coming out and basically eliminating the actual race-specific qualities of ability scores. The response from the same leftists on Twitter that were insisting that if Wizards did this, it would, that would solve the problem, are now saying it hasn't solved the problem. And, I think we all expected it at this point. So now, for example, Gizmodo came out with this article that says why race is still a problem in Dungeons and Dragons. So the new playtest material shows publisher Wizards of the Coast is trying to move past offensive racial stereotypes, but isn't going far enough. So they're basically saying that yes, there was an attempt to change elements relating how the game is played, and particularly in regards to what they call the thorny topic of race. Well, race isn't the thorny topic to any regular gamer, to any normal person playing D&D. They understand that elves and dwarves are make-believe creatures and are not meant to represent, I don't know, the Germans or something. They understand that race is actually, non-human races in fantasy are not other species or allegories for other ethnicities. They are representative They're metaphors for different concepts, values, virtues, vices, and things like that. It has nothing to do with racial politics or something, and only idiotic, generally ill-intentioned political fanatics believe that. So here Connie Chang, tabletop RPG designer, credits not presented. I've never heard of Connie Chang or what it's like they said Connie Chang as though they were saying Monty Cook or something like that, right? Or so they're saying Gary Gygax. Nobody knows who this is, but they're pretending that this person is an expert. Says Dungeons and Dragons will continue to fail unless or until they fundamentally change their approach to race, which I don't think they're going to do. Well, first of all, in what sense will it continue? You know why Dungeons and Dragons fails? It fails if it listens to people like this, right? It's just incredible. Because Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition has been the most successful edition Wizards have ever made, and might be the most successful edition ever made. That can still be debated, but it was definitely the most successful one Wizards ever made. And it's been going incredibly strong for an incredibly long time. And the only thing that is now slowing it down is the increase in wokeness. There's a direct correlation between the products getting woker and the sales starting to diminish, So that's a clear sign, right? It's a clear connection, direct. And here they are trying to say, oh, it'll continue to fail. Continue to fail in what sense? In the sense of not appealing to alt lifestyle weirdos? Like, is that what you're suggesting? Not appeal to like Antifa people who would never ever buy the game no matter what. It's ridiculous, So they also point out Wizards of the Coast declined to comment on this article. It's incredible that they didn't. I'm amazed they didn't apologize. They've been so absolutely ridiculous for the last 2 years in terms of their complete abject surrender to these wokist fanatics who hate D&D and whose goal is for D&D not to exist anymore, right? But now, basically these people have made it very clear to Wizards. And I suspect that it's only a question of time until Wizards gives in, that what they've done just by eliminating like racial bonuses to specific attributes, because now you can like basically get yourself bonuses in any attribute, doesn't matter what your race is. Doing that is not enough to them, because they say that there's still fundamental race essentialism in the game, right? So that means that there's the race essentialism. What they mean is that you still have certain things that only certain races can do and others can't. I mean, that's the only way to understand this. You can't think of it as any other perspective on that, right? The article, by the way, continues. I don't want to go into detail about the whole article, but it once again pees all over the grave of Gary Gygax, implying that he was a racist, sexist, etc. With, again, no real intelligent argument provided. So what they're saying, what did Wizards of the Coast get right? They say, the one change is that race has been decoupled from ability score increase, right? So before, it was used to narratively shoehorn certain races into certain classes. Halflings become rogues, dwarves become fighters, elves become magic users. Now, it doesn't, your race doesn't matter, only background does. So they think this is an improvement. They don't get that this is all about, races are meant to be, non-human races are meant to be archetypes. And having removed now anything archetypical about those races, what you've essentially done is made them even more purposeless, right? The argument that I've been making on this channel for a long time about people playing non-human races is that these non-human races are basically you're just playing them as a human in cosplay most of the time, right? And the one thing that you can argue that is maybe a bit outside of that, right? Like that it's not just you're playing a human with a funny nose or whatever. Is that you can at least be expected with like the most classic races to play them with certain characteristics, right? So, elves behave in a certain way or dwarves behave in a certain way. But now that's basically gone too, because there's no reason. An elf won't be any better at magic than a dwarf would be, or a halfling would be, or a kobold would be, right? That's not allowed, because that's race essentialism, right? And I think basically what they're arguing is that as long as as long as they are continue to maintain their bioessentialist perspectives and espouse racist stereotypes, the first point of contention is a matter of semantics. D&D, so arguing D&D shouldn't even use the word race, right? And I said, even if you did change the word race, though, somebody else adds, there would still be a lot of racial coding, so it would still be a problem. Right? So it doesn't even matter, that just changing the word isn't, they say you have to change a word or you're a bigot. But you know what? If you do change the word, you're still a bigot. There's no way that these people are ever satisfied. And fundamentally, what they seem to want, because skill packages emphasize that race impacts outcome. So your character will still end up having racial characteristics that will like certain racial skills, like your character. Race determines whether characters get skills like bravery, the ability to use tools well, or even the inherent knowledge of specific magical spells, regardless of any backstory or class. That is absurd. There isn't a race of people who are all naturally brave. There isn't elves, you dumbasses, right? There's no such thing as elves. Yes, I mean, presumably elves would all be naturally brave. It would be part of their characteristic. It would be part of their makeup, that because they're not humans and they're not meant to be, like they keep thinking elves are like, what, I don't know, the Italians or something. I don't know what they think. How are they reasoning this out? That they can say something like, oh, there isn't a non-human race that is entirely brave. You don't know because you've never actually met a non-human race in real life, but that's not the point, because the non-human characters in D&D are not meant to be just other races or even other species. They're not Vulcans or something like that. Though, well, technically Vulcan is a bad choice because it's also kind of a metaphor in a way, right? But you know what I mean. They're not meant to be sci-fi aliens. They're meant to be archetypes. And so they're saying that these are meant to be guardrails to keep the game accessible, so you can know what the base model looks like to customize a character, and that a massive list of traits and skills decoupled from race might be a barrier for new players attempting a new character. That's all correct, actually. Decoupling skills from all races might seem like an extreme solution, but it's how designers can begin to remove the bioessentialism from character creation. It'll open up possibilities for fantasy of D&D to truly become fantastic. Why shouldn't a dragonborn trance? Why can't orcs be stealthy? Why don't we have tieflings fly as a bonus action? Okay, so here's where they get to the point. Like they understand the actual reason that a normal analysis of game design would say as to why you don't want to just say, well, anybody can do anything, right? Because if anybody can do anything, what you have everywhere is gray goo, right? Like there are no races, classes, backgrounds. None of that matters. All you are blobs, right? That have no specific qualities or characteristics that will be consistent even in the world, right? Because if what applies to the player character applies to the setting, then obviously everything is just whatever, right? Like they're literally arguing here that D&D is racist because owl people can fly and halflings can't. If you can't make a halfling that has just because the ability to fly, is just born with the power to fly, then that's racist. that's their argument. It's just the most absurd thing in the world. But it shows you what their real goal is, right? These are deconstructionists. They want to destroy the entire concept of anything that is a fundamental structure of society, right? Whether that's hierarchy or whether that's definitions, clear definitions, whether it's boundaries of any kind. Right? And so what they want is they want a D&D where there are no classes, no races, probably no skills, no limits to what special abilities you can have. And so the idea is in theory, that way everybody is special, right? But that's not what happens. What actually ends up happening is that nobody has any definition and no purpose, right? There's nothing that contacts any kind of a higher level of symbolism that connects to any kind of theme or concept in that type of play, right? And that's actually what they want, because they don't want people making those connections, because people who can make those connections, people who can not learn something in the sense of being indoctrinated by political ideology, which is what they want D&D to do, but rather learn something in the sense of having an experience where they examine symbols and archetypes and realize that these transmit certain lessons about our life and morality. They don't want people to have that. That's a problem for them, because it'll get in the way, right? It gets in the way of the indoctrination. So this is the argument. They are not going to be satisfied until D&D is basically a gray goo game, right? It's a game where there are no restrictions whatsoever, and therefore basically there are no rules for what your character is, and the game becomes completely unmanageable, and then it'll fail, but they don't care. They weren't going to buy it anyways. Their point is just to prevent other people from using it in a way that will potentially, they fear, engender people who to be resistant to their indoctrination techniques. It's the reason they're attacking the heroic ideal everywhere, right? And not just the heroic ideal, but the foundations of literature, of myth, of legend, of everything to do with Western art and culture, So I don't know. One would dream that Wizards will smarten up and realize that this is a game they can't possibly win, because they're trying to negotiate with someone whose ultimate goal is just Wizards, D&D's destruction. That's what they want. That's the end game for them, and they're not interested in any scenario where D&D actually ends up surviving. So anything that they concede before this as an attempt of collaboration, right, of appeasement, will just buy them a week or two before they will then say, no, you know what, this is horribly racist, this is horribly sexist, this is horribly homophobic, right? Even though we're the ones that told you to do this, that said that would be the solution, it's not enough, right? You're going to have to keep going. So, that's where it's at. I hope that Wizards will figure out that they shouldn't be doing this, that this isn't going to be the answer for them. But I suspect that they're going to keep right on appeasing, and maybe this might even end up affecting what they do with the 1D&D thing. I know that they have tried to dedicate themselves to backwards compatibility as a theme, and getting rid of all definitions will probably not be good for backwards compatibility. That's the least of the problems. So maybe that'll be the only thing that stops them from going that far this time. But that'll just allow for the wokists to continue making this pressure on them over and over again. I think unless there's a change of administration in Wizards, it's not likely to change anything. But what's interesting is that this is we're seeing what their end game is. It's very clear. They're very obvious about it, right? They want to get rid of all structure in D&D play, and the reason for it is because they consider any structure in anything to do with the world basically to be oppressive. It's an oppression of some kind to them. All right, that's everything for today. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, share it anywhere you think people find it interesting, or anywhere you think people will get pissed off about it. And check out my products. My products, I promise, are not going to ever be gray goo products. So luckily, we have alternatives in the OSR. Currently smoking Dunhill Amber Root Bulldog plus Cornell and Deal's Old Joe Krantz.